On the previous episode of Talking with T, I spoke to Rewind about his professional career in Mortal Kombat, some of the struggles that he faced, amongst other topics that we got into with a lot of detail. Now, one of these topics that we got into seemed to gather up a lot of conversation under the YouTube comments. And both Rewind and I were looking at those comments, and we kind of figured that some of them were true. We didn't go into as much detail as we could have regarding some of my issues with Mortal Kombat 1 and some of his issues with Mortal Kombat 1. And we decided to release a quick video on that specific topic of what can be better with Mortal Kombat 1. Obviously, he knows more than I do about this. And give you guys a better perspective of how he feels and provide a more productive conversation. So I'm joined again with Rewind. What's going on, brother? It is good to see you. And congrats on making top 8. Hopefully you take it tomorrow.
Hey, bro, appreciate you having me back on here to go a little deeper into the topic since we kind of didn't even really address what the whole title of the podcast was about. And appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Well, you're what time are you playing tomorrow, by the way?
I think I play tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, I got you. And you know your first opponent?
King Gambler.
Nice. Okay. All right, so let's get right into it, man. One of the things that I started that specific conversation about was my issues with Mortal Kombat series, like the games that have released. And I used maybe an overdramatic explanation of why I feel like those games felt the same to me, and I didn't go into detail. So let me just make this clear. I totally understand that Mortal Kombat 9 and Mortal Kombat X were massively different in the mechanics and the overall flow of the game. And the same thing with MKX and MK11. So, and honestly, the same thing with MK11 to MK1, although I feel like those are a little bit closer. But when I said that I felt like those games were the same, it was the fact that in Mortal Kombat games, you have to input a chain link in order for something to come out, like a 1-1-2. I guess that never really sat right with me because of whiff punishing and how to pressure with it and like committing to the entire string into the special move. So that's what I meant by what I was trying to say with Mortal Kombat games feeling the same. How do you feel about that now that I've explained it? Rewind.
No, yeah,
Like, what can you say
like
about
I said
that?
on the last podcast, I don't agree that they felt the same, but I get that you have your personal issues with the game, but just the way it plays, and that's just because you just don't come from it. You know, it's just a different fighting game, so you have to make an adjustment, given that it's a whole different fighting game.
Yeah.
When I play Street Fighter, say the first time I ever played Street Fighter was 5. That's the first Street Fighter I ever fought. It's just a different game. It's not it's links. It's not chained combos. It's just different. So, but more so, what I wanted to touch on was, my personal gripes with Mortal Kombat 1 and how they're going about how NetherRealm Studios is actually going about its release and the competitive side of it, and even the casual side of it. Because all the gameplay stuff is definitely like, to each their own. Like, everybody's gonna have their opinion about how they feel about the way the game plays and stuff. But for me, my issues are more so with other things. Not so much gameplay, because this is actually my favorite Mortal Kombat that's came out. Well, not favorite Mortal Kombat. I would say this is better than MK11 in my opinion as far as the gameplay. I actually really like this game, but I do feel like there are some things that should have been already in the game on its release.
Okay. And what would be some of those things, and go into detail with those gripes?
So one of the main things is that everybody's griping about with MK is really just the fact that it felt so unfinished at its release. It felt that we were missing game modes. We were missing simple little things and options in the practice mode settings that were in previous MKs. So there's no absolute reason for it to not be in this game. We're in 2023. That's the when the game dropped. We are definitely in the era where we should have options that are in other fighting games. You get what I'm saying? Like, we can't lab while looking up while being in a ranked queue. You know, we're either in the lab or we're in ranked. You can't practice while you're searching. So that's one of the most annoying things, because other fighting games at this point have that. That's like a normal thing. We were missing, like I said, moves in the practice. Like we couldn't tag special moves in the lab, which is crucial for people who are trying to get into the game and learn how to do a string, and they want it to just be displayed on the screen while they try to attempt it. That wasn't even an option, and that's been in MK9 for crying out loud. I think.
Wow.
I think. But yeah, that just and that's like 2 generation consoles ago. We're on PS5 now, you know. So and modern fighting games like MK 1 is supposed to be, brothers with Tekken and Street Fighter 6. Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, MK1 are supposed to be like they all released around the same time. So the comparisons are going to be super heavy, you know? So
Of
you
course.
can't Street Fighter 6 wowed us out the gate with the game, the amount of options and things that you can do in this game that versus the other one, especially net rollback. That's a huge one that the game got, right? So NRS was always pretty notorious for being the kings of rollback. I don't know if it was the first game with rollback in it, but it was one of the first mainstream fighting games, out of the big main stage games that introduced rollback at a good and it functioned. It wasn't like Street Fighter V's rollback where it was still
Absolutely.
kind of buggy. Um, but yeah, things like that. The game was just not finished, and that's just one thing. If we want to talk about the competitive side of it, we can dive into that. But if we're just talking about the actual game, I mean, we don't have online practice still. That was an option in MK11 and Mortal Kombat X, or no, not X, but Injustice 2. So, why is there no online practice NRS in a game that's coming out in 2023 and we've had it in previous titles? Like, why is that not in the game? That makes no sense to me. Um, and they changed the rank system from first to 3 to first to 2, which isn't even NetherRealm Studios tournament format. Why are we practicing in a way? Why are we playing ranked matches in a format that isn't tournament?
Wow. Yeah.
So if it was first to 3 to begin with, you guys reverted it to first to 2. Why? Another one of my big gripes, and I know I'm talking for quite a bit here.
No, no,
Feel
dude.
free to
This is
interject.
gold.
Feel free to
This is
interject.
gold.
But as far as also in the rank mode, before NRS was notorious. I know this is not so much of a Tekken thing, a Street Fighter thing, but NRS did this, and it was their own little unique thing. And I think a lot of people don't actually notice that this is a huge problem, especially competitors. We know, but when you boot into ranked, you have to choose your character and cameo before the rank match starts, and sometimes you end up in an unfavorable matchup from the very start of the set in Combat League.
Yeah.
And you say you're a person with multiple characters. You have plenty of characters that you would choose for a particular matchup, and you can't even go to them because even when you do lose, you can only switch cameos. You can't switch characters. And I find that so dumb because you're literally giving people virtually an advantage. Sometimes you get the advantage too. Let's not act like it's one way or the other. It is one way or the other. It just depends. We don't know what character the other person's gonna pick. I think
Yeah.
all fighting games personally should adopt being able to change characters in ranked. I mean, I know Street
I
Fighter's the
agree.
same way. That's
I
dumb.
agree.
That's
You should
dumb.
be able to. You should be able to rank up with somebody, see the character they're choosing, and then you choose your character. That should 100% be the way. And there should be a timer, like a 10, 15-second timer. Pick the character, pick the
I
cameo,
think
whatever.
personally you should know what character they're picking too. Because that's what it is offline. It's not like
In
I can't
tournament,
see
of
your
course.
character. Yeah,
Unless you do a blind pick. So
exactly. Which
you
is
have to
legal.
keep that in mind. Yeah, it's legal. It's legal to do blind picks. So I mean, just a better format would definitely
Yep.
would be beneficial. But keep going. This is really good.
Yeah. So yeah, just the game feeling unfinished is the overall problem. I kind of just dived into pieces and bits of the unfinishedness, but um it makes no sense for a multi-million billion dollar corporation like Warner Brothers Studios to have an unfinished product. Like, what was the rush and why did you rush the game out? Why did you feel like it had to come out so early? We already had, fun fact, NRS games come out every 2 years typically. They've been in that format up until 2019. The pandemic actually interrupted that cycle and extended it because people couldn't go to offices and work together. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to develop a game when you guys aren't around each other. It's probably
Yeah.
possible. The pandemic forced a lot of us to be online. But yeah, so MK11 was actually the first NRS title, I believe, in NRS's history, because NetherRealm Studios is actually, they took over, I think, Midway. I think that's who originally did NRS.
Yeah.
Or not
Yeah.
NRS, MK. I
Mhm.
think. Um That was when I was real little though. But other than that, NRS has released the title every 2 years. MK9 2011 to 13, Injustice 1 13 to 15, MKX 15 to 17, Injustice 2 17 to 19, and MK11 was 2019 to 2023. So it actually had 4 years, which is um, not our usual style. So a lot of us are used to playing, 2 years, boom, we're gone. You know, if fun fact, the Chilean twins, the ones who were making a crazy Mortal Kombat 11 run, they came after 2 years. So you know how I said that NRS games are underratedly hard because they come out every 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, think about it. A whole two godlike players who are considered one of the best players in the world now came in year 4 or 3 and 4. So
Of Mortal Kombat 11.
yeah, so those are players who would have never probably got the spotlight they did if MK1, MK11 actually only lasted the 2 years.
Mm,
That's why I said NRS games are underratedly hard to be top player in, because if you're not a quick learner, you're going to get left behind and the new game is going to come out and you never actually got a chance to prove what you could have done in that title. And everything that you can do in that title now is irrelevant because we're not on that game anymore. You know what I'm
that's
saying?
that's a great point.
Um,
That is a really good point.
exactly. Like you got people like me, like in MKX, I played the entire game's life, but I didn't make any noise in 2015 because I couldn't travel. I didn't really make any noise in 2016 because I couldn't travel. But I did get my name out there. And then Injustice 2 came out in 2017, and I was a immaculate MKX player in my opinion. Like I worked really hard. And I felt like I was making strides in that game. I feel my name was creeping up in MKX, but I never got a chance. In my opinion, I think I'm one of the best MKX players. That's just my opinion though. Um, I've put in like, but I've only ever put in time in the offline, like online scene. So like, nobody's really gonna credit. They're never gonna give the credit to online achievements as they are to offline. That's at the end
Of
of the day,
course.
that is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a whole different environment. There's nothing like playing with people, a bunch of people behind you. You got the headphones on. Your opponent's right next to you.
Yeah.
You're on a monitor that you probably aren't comfortable on. Most monitors
Correct.
at tournaments aren't the ones we have at home. Uh, yeah, like I have an Acer 27-inch 1MS 144 hertz monitor. I don't have a super crazy monitor because you really don't need them for the game I play. Make sure if you guys are aspiring to be good fighting game players, make sure to have as good of hardware as well that you can. It doesn't have to be super top of the line, but make sure the hardware that you have maximizes the performance of the game you're trying to play. Otherwise, you'll actually be playing a whole different game than others. Me, I'm playing the whole wrong game in Street Fighter 6. I play on PS5. I heard PS5 Street Fighter 6 is garbage, and I'm
Yes.
over here not reacting to certain things because I'm on the wrong software base, not software, but hardware.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's supposed to be on PC. I'm a very reactionary player, so that's actually affecting my play, and I really didn't even know that. I'm getting all salty about these things that I can't react to, and the whole time you actually can if you just switch to PC. You know,
Yeah, but there's also Street Fighter 6's input lag
It-
problem as well,
which is
which is
attached to
a
console,
very
right?
relevant. Not just console, but
Okay.
PC as well. There, if the input lag was reduced, we could react to Drive Rush a little bit better with our buttons. But let's go back to the unfinished game release. There was also issues with PC. I bought the game for $110 and it was virtually not playable on PC when it first came out. I ran into so many glitches, so many bugs, and it was just very frustrating. And it just made me also not want to keep playing because it was very annoying every time. Frequent crashes on my PC, and that was very disheartening in the beginning. Um, was there anything else with the package of unfinished game, like what was it? Anything in ranked match? I feel like there was something in ranked match that I'm trying to remember besides the first to two or first to three thing. Oh, the Wi-Fi indicator, right?
That was the one big thing. Yes. For a long time, you couldn't decline pings that were
Yes.
Wi-Fi. If you got a
Mm-hmm.
Wi-Fi player, you just had to hold that. Um, as long as
Lobbies.
so before, it was even worse back in the day. I mean, obviously, all games were worse in general back in the day, but MK1, you couldn't. They introduced at least the ability to decline any pings above 150 ms, which is 150 ms for people who don't understand is a really unplayable ping. It's really laggy. you're never really gonna be able to execute anything that you usually normally do in that sort of ping, and it could cost you Ls, it can make you not like the game, it can make you stop playing the game, so NRS is trying to keep players, so, this is where you listen to the community, because if you don't listen to the community, you will lose clientele, you know?
Yeah, that's like
Uh,
business 101, right?
it's business 101, like, we tell you what we want, you, try your best to provide it. I mean, obviously you can't this is a whole different thing when it comes to patches and buffs and nerfs, but when we're talking about literal things that should just be in the game from the jump, then, these are your core fans that buy the game, the people who, like, aren't trying to compete, they're just trying to buy the game, play the game, and they want it to be as modern and new as possible, and you guys are falling behind Tekken and Street Fighter, who have their practice modes are the best practice modes I've ever seen. Obviously, practice mode is a little more important to me because I'm a competitor and I need a lab and things like that. But the things that you can replicate in practice mode in Tekken and Street Fighter is insane. I feel like our lab is actually worse than it was in MK11, which makes no sense. But other than that, yeah, you bring up a good point with like just bringing up PC because I forgot to mention the crossplay not being an option on release
Yeah,
was a
crossplay.
huge bummer.
Couldn't play with you, couldn't play with Slayer, couldn't play with
Huge,
Michelangelo, couldn't play with all
exactly.
the homies, the pros that I wanted to learn from as well. That was very frustrating. Um, if there is no other gripe with the unfinished game side of it, let's talk about the mechanical side of it. Do you have any gripes with the mechanical side of the game now? Because you listed a lot. I mean, that's a lot more than I did. That I didn't even know there was that many problems with the unfinished side of it. Like obviously from my realm, it's like, oh, they don't have good Wi-Fi indicator. That's what I'm seeing on Twitter. But like you're listing off so many basic functions that should be in a fighting game in 2024, especially after the release of Street Fighter 6, which blew the whole competition apart with like this is the standard now. And then Tekken 8 as well. So what about the mechanical side of the game? Do you have gripes in?
Mechanical as in like, gameplay.
Like gameplay, yeah, like gameplay, yeah.
Yeah. I don't really have any gripes mechanically. I think mechanically the game that's my favorite part. You know,
System
that's
mechanics.
yeah. I like a lot of the mechanics that they got rid of, which is the best part. There was a lot of mechanics in MK11 that were definitely hand holding mechanics. I don't like hand holding mechanics, but that's become kind of a new thing in fighting games in general. Modern
Yeah,
fighting games. I don't really.
yeah.
That's the thing I don't like about modern fighting games is they're shifting towards trying to make the not so good player have a chance, which is um I mean, I understand the business model of it, but it hurts competition. If we're being honest, like Fatal Blow, I've never liked that mechanic. That mechanic should just actually be removed from the game in general. It was never a good mechanic. It wasn't even a good idea. And for those who don't play or watch MK, Fatal Blow is essentially a comeback mechanic where if you two players have health bars, you start with 100%. Once a player actually gets to 30%, you receive this mechanic called a Fatal Blow, which you can just press two buttons. And if it so happens to hit your opponent, you just get a free 35%. Some characters get more, some characters get less, some characters get put into better positions on the screens, some things like that. And you simply just get this mechanic for essentially losing life. And if you so happen to not land the move, it actually comes back in about 10, 15 seconds. I'm not sure exactly, but it
Yeah, I
comes
hate
right back.
that.
It comes right back and you can use it again. So until you actually land this move, it just keeps coming back. And it's a very hand-holding mechanic because you shouldn't get rewarded in that fashion for losing. That's literally all that mechanic is you receive it for losing and it gives you one more opportunity to essentially rob the opponent. And I can't lie, I've robbed plenty of people with Fatal Blow. Thank you, NRS, but it sucks when I get robbed. I would be honest. But yeah, that mechanic sucks. That's the only mechanic I actually don't like. A lot of people complain about up block, but people are gonna complain about something all the time.
Yeah.
Um, my biggest gripe is anti-airs. I like that in Street Fighter, you can always, depending on the DP, obviously, some DPs might not cover the greatest angles, but there's no consistent anti-air in NRS games. They always make the jump kicks so hard to anti-air. It's very annoying. It just basically promotes the player to just take to the skies, because they know if that player tries to even anti-air, you might get stuffed. And getting stuffed means you tried to anti-air them out the air, and then you lose, and now you're getting full comboed because he jumped. And it takes me more skill to anti-air than it does for him to jump. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And
Uh,
so it encourages
it
the
encourages bad
player
play.
to, yes.
It encourages bad play, and that was what MK11 was all about. Let's not even talk about MK11. Let's focus on MK1. Um, but they introduced up block, which I think is a great mechanic in the sense that there's counterplay to it. You can grab it and it does a lot of damage. It's kind of like grabbing a perfect parry. It does a lot of damage.
Okay.
Um, but as far as I just want a solid anti-air that I could depend on always, and I don't have to take a risk. I feel like I need one anti-air where if you jump, period, you're losing life if I'm ready for the jump in. You know what I'm saying? If I'm ready always, you should just lose. You decided to abandon neutral and just decided to jump. Desperation and the fact that you can actually get rewarded or put me into a 50-50 scenario off just jumping is kind of scrubby. Because like I said, you can empty jump. Like they introduced up block to be this universal mechanic that all characters can use to anti-air people for jumping. It gives you a full combo if you up block a jump attack. But like I said, the counterplay is to grab it, and the fact that you can put me into that 50-50 of, oh my god, is he gonna grab my up block or not, is stupid because you just jumped. That's all you had to do was to enforce that mind game, was just jump. Because some characters are just hard to anti. But I just feel like they should just make down twos like invincible. Honestly, like DPs are invincible. They don't launch. In Street Fighter. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I'm not trying to act like I know all this Street Fighter. I just play it enough to know how the game typically operates.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody,
you're on point.
yeah, people have DPs. They usually don't launch. It's not like they can. Some I don't know, but can't. But
But by launch, you mean like
like they grant a
an
full
air
combo.
combo?
No,
Air
they just
combo.
grant a
No.
full combo in general. Yeah, just DPs are just used as a way to if you jump, you're gonna eat this. If I'm
Yes. Yes,
and I
exactly.
feel like NRS games should have that. Down twos, they don't launch. They do like 14%, so it's enough to a person's not gonna die for jumping, but they will die if you jump 10 times.
Yeah.
If you keep jumping at me, you're going to keep getting down two. That would be nice if they made down twos invincible. It doesn't launch. So that means the player just doesn't jump and die,
You know
Um,
what would sorry to interrupt, you know what would also be a benefit of doing that?
yeah.
When I think of Mortal Kombat and the era of Mortal Kombat that really caught my attention, the down two in Mortal Kombat looked so satisfying. Hitting somebody with a down two in the Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 games, there's a specific feeling attached to that move. Um, I know in Street Fighter it's the Mexican uppercut, but it just doesn't work the same as Mortal Kombat. At like that full launcher uppercut to your face. I feel like seeing more of the down two. Every time I see a down two, somebody get anti-aired with a down two in Mortal Kombat, it just looks so sick and satisfying, and it always gives me that nostalgic Mortal Kombat feeling. So I feel like by making it invincible, that would also be good for the game, uh, visibly for the audience as well, because they could also add the whoopsie,
hmm Yeah.
I know I
No,
did that
the
kind of
toasty.
shitty, but yeah, the
Toasty.
toasty. Does it say
Yeah.
toasty or whoopsie?
I mean, I think he might say that too. But to my knowledge, it might be just
Whoopsie. There it is.
toasty. Yeah. But
But yeah, I feel like
as
that
far
would
as-
look cool too.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, that's just what you prefer in the game. But that's cool. Everybody could want things to look a certain way or perform. But my gripes are really only the mechanics that promote bad play and really just the game being unfinished, no crossplay. And then when they did introduce crossplay, there was no crossplay for King of the Hills, and there's currently still until this day no online practice till this day. Um, um, no. So they introduced crossplay, and it wasn't in King of the Hills. Then they introduced it. When they introduced it, it made the servers so laggy. I just don't like how every time NRS does a patch, it causes the game to perform horribly. It's so laggy online, and I don't see other fighting games go through that. So I would pray that a game corporation that makes as much money as they do from us, the consumer, they would at least make the game finished. And when you drop patches, it doesn't cause the game to just crash and not work. And I feel like that's reasonable to want out of your money. You don't
Yeah.
want to pay $60 for a game, and it costs $500 for the console, and it's how you even think PC players feel. They have like $22,000, $1,500 rigs, and they buy MK, and you can't play it because the game, it just wasn't made for PC. The PC ports have been trash for every NRS game, if
Yeah,
I'm being
and
honest.
It's also important to realize that it's not just $60 to the professional player, it's our whole lives. Our whole lives are devoted to this, and we spend a lot more than $60 in order to make this a reality, this dream into a reality of being able to win a tournament. So I feel like it's not a lot to ask for from our perspective. I mean, everything that you have said sounds very logical, very standard at this point, and very fair as well. Now, the logistics and money and whatever, the business side of it, we obviously don't know, it, but we could literally give you a thesis statement on why uh, the changes that we typically ask for, and by we, I mean most top players, uh, we are looking for more logical answers. But anyway, sorry, I went on a little rant there.
No, you're good,
Uh,
bro.
um,
I was talking for a while. No, I get you,
okay,
bro.
so you give the gripes for the unfinished side of it. You give the
And the
gripes
mechanical side.
for the mechanical side of it as well. I wanna I wanna mention a couple of things and get your opinion on it because I don't understand this part of Mortal Kombat gameplay. And then we could end this by also talking about the positives, like how what positives you've noticed because you said that this is your favorite gameplay wise Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
game. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you was, um, rather affirm, is in the previous episode, you mentioned that the movement in Mortal Kombat is the hardest movement in any fighting game, maybe other than something like a Marvel versus Capcom, right? The movement in Mortal Kombat is very, very difficult because you're dashing, blocking, everything that you're doing is with a block button. If you I'm sure that you, as a player, rewind when you play against somebody in the first 5 seconds, you're testing their movement. And if their movement ain't on point, it's like full on confidence for you, right?
I feel like that's more Tekken. I'll be honest. As a pro NRS player, I pay attention to movement. Um, but we got it's not. I pay attention to movement, but I don't think a guy not being able to move in an NRS game is as detrimental as it is in Tekken. If you can't
Ooh,
move in Tekken, you are cooked. You have no chance. Zero chance.
true.
In NRS games, you can move. You don't have to. It's not as hard to move in NRS games as it is Tekken.
Of course, that's why I said
Yeah.
Marvel and maybe some other game. But yeah, Tekken. Of course, Tekken has the hardest movement, hands down.
Yeah, and that's animes too. Animes, you can't move your cook too. That's
Hmm.
just normal
Hmm.
in those games.
I guess what I was trying to say was like in Street Fighter, in the first 5 seconds, I just try to typically walk my opponent down, get in range of their buttons. If I see that their movement is uncomfortable or their button placing in neutral is bad,
Yep.
it's like, oh, this guy's cooked for me. So I can judge how strong a player is simply by their movement in Street Fighter.
Yeah, you could do that in NRS games too. If a dude's just literally sitting there blocking, he's done for. That means he's not trying to close distance and none of that. He doesn't know how to create whiff punish opportunities and stuff like that.
Exactly, exactly. So like I
Yeah.
was talking about with punish opportunities, the dash blocking, if it's crispy, like are you paying attention to the crispiness of the dash blocking, all of that
Mm.
stuff in the beginning?
More so in MK11 because it was harder to move in that game than it was in MK1. Or it is in MK1. MK11 they had wave dashing, which is kind of
Oh yeah.
closer to Korean backdashing and stuff like that than what the movement system is in MK1. MK1 you're dash blocking, so all you're doing is dashing and canceling it with a block and then dashing out of the block. In MK11 it was actually a rhythm. You had to do the movement in a rhythm, and if you did it perfect, you were skating. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, it looked nice. It looked
it
nice.
looked good, and it looked good. It's like in Tekken, if you could tell what a dude can't create backdash, especially if he has a backsway character. That's why I never wanted to learn Paul or Brian, even though I want to play him so bad. Because if you don't got those crispy, you're gonna be backswing. It's so annoying. So that, like I said, in that game, if you literally can't do that shit, you're cooked. But in MK1, the movement is it's something to get used to if you're not used to using a block button. You know what I'm saying? If you're not used
Mhm.
to using a block button in your movement, that's just a learning curve at that point. It's not that the movement's bad or good. It's that you have a learning curve to pick up on because this is just the way we move in this game. You know what I'm
Perfect.
saying?
Let's go into the next one. That's what I wanted to talk about was the block button. For me, you said it's a learning curve. You just mentioned that it was a learning curve. That's what I feel like I need to be able to learn how to do is to use the block button in Mortal Kombat. But it's always felt uncomfortable for me. because I've played Street Fighter my whole life and games where typically holding back you block, having that block button just makes me feel uncomfortable. What are your thoughts about a block button? Like you've played Street Fighter, how do you personally use the block button? Like it just feels so weird for me.
So when it comes to the block button, obviously it's utilized when you're moving so that you can actually cancel your dash, and it makes your movement quicker. And it makes you less prone to get hit by stray projectiles because you can actually block. It's not like in Street Fighter, you kind of just have to walk. You can't just dash into a freaking face first into a projectile. You get me?
Hmm.
Um, in this game, you can actually dash and then block the projectile. You can dash and duck it. That's another thing. Fireballs is sorry, off topic, but fireballs are highs in this game. Like most fireballs are highs. So it's something that's something interest specific. I don't know if there's like that in Street Fighter where you can neutral duck a projectile and it goes right over your head. You get what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yeah, there isn't anything like that.
Exactly. You just have to block that projectile or jump it or something like that. And in this game, the block button is an option. You can play the game without blocking. You get what I'm saying? But you're just gonna die. But as far as the block button, I mean, how I utilize it, I use it to move. Obviously, I use my D-pad and my block button to move. I use it to defend. Um, that's pretty much all I use the block button for, really.
The reason why I'm saying that is because of teching throws. That was also something I
I
wanted
ain't
to
gonna
get
lie,
into
teching throws
was
is one of the hard. I ain't. We already talked about this. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you
yeah,
get yours off.
yeah, of course. Um, I wanted to ask you for your thought process when it comes to teching throws because ki- in my head, I struggle so much with understanding when to let go of block, when to press one or when to press two to tech, when he's going to throw me into the corner or out of the corner. I don't know how to utilize the block button when it comes to teching throws. And that's why I also feel like I have such a big gripe with throw teching in this game. So, can you explain your thought process and how to utilize that mechanic in the best possible way when it comes to teching throws?
Yeah, taking throws is for a person who is first trying to learn how to take throws in an NRS game. It is kind of hard. There's a lot of rules. You got to guess. That's one. You have to let go of block. So if you get grabbed while blocking, you can't just guess. No, you have to let go of block and then guess to tech the throw, which is crazy. And they actually made that window to tech smaller in MK1 than it was in MK11 and X and Justice 2 and all that. MK1, I just feel that way. I don't know if that's true. I can't confirm that, but I feel it's harder to take an MK1. I feel like the window is smaller. Um, but yeah, my thought process on going about teching is obviously you have to let go of block. That's kind of like you don't have that doesn't mean though that you can tech throws on reaction. So it doesn't mean that you have to let go of block and you risk getting hit.
That's
You know
what
what I'm
I'm
saying?
always afraid of. Like, I feel like I can't react to the throw. I don't
Yeah, but
know if
that's a
he's going to
skill
throw.
issue. That's a skill issue. You can react. You can actually get grabbed
Facts.
and then let go of block and tech. You don't have to like already be not blocking before he grabs you and then, you know.
Say that
Uh
one more time. Say that one more time.
so you can be blocking and then
Hmm.
get grabbed and then let go of block and then guess left or right. But
Okay.
you're thinking you have to already not be blocking when he goes for
Yes.
the throw and then you get
Yes.
hit. That's not a risk. That's not a um you shouldn't be just letting go of block prior to the grab actually coming out.
Well, thank you for explaining that to me because for this whole time I've been thinking that I can't hold block and then get thrown and then react to it with a tech.
Oh yeah, you're playing the game completely wrong, buddy.
Well, that explains a lot. Okay, so what about, okay, that part seems easier then. Yeah, I can actually react to that and be able to respond with my reactions. Okay, but now what about the guessing part of it? Is he going to throw me into the corner or out of the corner, guessing with one
I
or
mean,
two?
got you. So you got four tech buttons. Two. Let's just go through it. There's only two directions you can throw. You got four buttons to tech both ways. You can use two different buttons to take left. You can use two different buttons to take right. What button you use is your choice. I typically
Okay.
like using 3 and 4, which is X and circle. If you're on Xbox, A and B. um, I like using those buttons because if you are wrong, say you mistime the tech window, at least if your button comes out, it it's a safer button that comes out.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
if you tech with 2, say you're crouching, right? And you think he's gonna throw. You got horrible reactions. You're not good at reacting you're not good at reacting to the throw animation. So you preemptively let go block in tech, but he doesn't throw. Or he does something that's similar to the look of a throw, and then you get shimmied, basically. um, at least the button that comes out when you try to tech is not a down 2. A lot of people tech with down 2 because you can use 1 to tech back throws, 2 to tech forward throws, 3 to tech back throws, and 4 to tech forward throws. So a lot of people use 2 and 1, but I think if you're trying to be a smart player, use 3 and 4. Because if you use, say you're duck blocking and somebody throws you forward and you think they're gonna throw you forward and you tech with 2 and you're crouching, you get a down 2. That's a very unsafe button to just throw out there if you're wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So you typically want to. I use 3 and 4. I can't sit here and act like I don't tech throws with 4 throws with 2. Because in MK11 there was a mechanic called down 2 crushing blow, and
Mm-hmm.
if you accidentally fucked up on teching, at least you got a down 2 crushing blow. But whole different game. But you could tech with 1 and 2 for forward and back. Well, okay, 1 and 3 for back, 2 and 4 for man. And I'm not gonna sit here and I ain't gonna lie, I'm not gonna sit here and define what 1, 2, 3, 4 is. That is not my
No,
job here
you don't
today.
got you don't got to do all that. You don't got to do all that. But
Yeah, but yeah. So my initial thought process is okay. Let me try to train my brain to react to the throw, not preemptively tech, because that's what Street Fighter is. You got tech. Of course, I heard that. Like I can't. I'm not good at it, but there's delayed tech, right?
yes.
Yeah. So you got tech and delayed tech. In NRS game, just think of delayed tech as like the only version you can react. So you don't have to guess. The only time you have to, so you don't have to like guess at whether they're gonna do it or not. You just have to guess which way.
Okay.
That's that's when you know you really are good at teching throws in NRS games. If you're reacting every time, and then at that point, if you're reacting, at least you just got to guess. At the end of the day, you can't just guess right, but you can start to um, increase your odds of teching depending on the positioning. You know,
Correct. Now go into that. Yes.
if you're the one out the corner and somebody's in the corner, they don't want to be in the corner, so you're most likely to tech the back throw because you don't want to get thrown into the corner. So in theory, if you just react to the throw and tech back every time, you're going to tech every time because he's trying to get out the corner. But if he's smart, he'll throw you forward every time. You know, so that's a whole layer. Like you're just like, okay, I'm in the corner. Technically, 4 throws when your back is against the wall are the freest throws in the game. That means he has to tech the throw. He has to think about that. He's choosing to not get corner positioning for a throw.
Yeah.
And most people are fine with that. I mean, when you're talking about risk reward and all that,
Resetting the neutral.
yeah, you'd rather get forward throw, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously the positioning is a big thing that influences what direction you want to tech. And then reacting to the throw is the other step. But I mean, none of that is just easy. You know, reacting to throws. There's some pros who are free, you know, to throws. There's some pros who get shimmied all day. But you have to know too, throws in this game. I know we're just talking about teching, but throws in this games are highs. You can duck throws. You don't always have to tech throws.
Yes.
And this is when we start getting into OSs because I typically duck OS, which means I don't even put in this position to have to tech often because I don't like guessing. You don't
Yeah.
get
So
rewarded.
explain that.
You don't get rewarded for teching in this game. You just don't get thrown. That's your reward. You don't get thrown. I actually like to receive a reward for somebody teching. You know, this is kind of like the equivalent of somebody backdashing your throw in Street Fighter. They don't want to
Yes.
just tech the throw; they want to punish the throw.
Yes.
But the thing about doing that in Street Fighter is you just die if they meaty. You know,
Yes.
it's in NRS games. I duck OS. That's like a very high level strat that people use. You know,
It's called micro ducking, right?
yeah, you micro duck OS. It's called micro duck OSing. So essentially, you kind of just tap the block button, and if you got to hope that they throw you in that frame where you're not blocking, and the throw whiffs because you can duck throws. So you can essentially cover slow mids and throws. So that means if they go for the mid, you won't get hit. If they go for the throw, you won't get grabbed. You know, which is kind of cheap if you can master it. And most high level players do that. Sometimes you can mess it up though.
How long do you think it would take to master something like this? Because it seems like a very important skill to develop and something that separates top players from average.
Man, as far as, that's just an avoiding throw type of OS. That's the whole main point of that OS is to avoid throws and not get hit in the process. Um, but how long it would take, that varies on the person. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
People learn at
How long
different
did it
rates.
take you? Yeah, of course.
It didn't take me very long.
Like, how hard of a mechanic is it to be able to learn?
I
That's
think it's
that's
so
what I
easy
mean.
for me to duck OS. I think it's one of the easiest OSs there is to do, and I actually think it's the reason why this OS was never a topic in MKX is because throw recovery in that game was faster. So you
Mm,
actually couldn't whiff a throw in that game, and you have 30 frames of whiff throw recovery, and then you get punished. In this game, if you can actually duck a throw, and you have quite a bit of time to punish the throw, and say so. This is gonna be the example, right? Street Fighter,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Imagine in
Yeah.
Street Fighter if you backdash the throw and you couldn't punish after the backdash. Like imagine you actually the throws in Street Fighter recovered so fast that if you tried to backdash read it, you couldn't actually punish.
There's no point to
That,
backdashing it then.
exactly. That was MKX, so there's no point in duck OSing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
That
hmm.
this was something that you could do, but there was no point in doing it. Um, but when it comes to MK11 and 1, the throw recovery in that game is very big. So you can whiff a throw. So that means you can actually let go of block and then block again, make the throw whiff, but still punish them without getting hit. You know? That's why we call it an option select. That's what OS means. You're trying to cover multiple options by doing one option. You know, that's pretty much my thought process on taking throws and duck OSing and all that. That's a whole different topic. That's low key its own video, duck OSing. I'm sorry
Yeah.
that
No,
way.
for sure. No,
Yeah,
no, that
but
was perfect,
that's
bro.
why this game is crazy because that's not a option in other fighting games. So you can't duck OS. That's a NRS specific option. All games have their own little things though. Um, but that is a hard thing for somebody to come in and understand. That's what separates top players from great players is the littlest tech. If you got the littlest tech and if you've mastered it, and this is a defensive tech, micro duck OSing is a tech that helps your defense. If you're not duck OSing, you're at a disadvantage. That means you're more susceptible to throws. You know, that means you are putting yourself in the situation where you have to react and tech more often, which is not really fun because who likes guessing? Um, if you're duck OSing, you're kind of covering that, but it doesn't always work. It's hard to do. You can mess it up. It's all timing based. It's kind of like how Tekken is. People are playing on different timings,
Yeah.
and they're trying to change the timings, which causes people to get clipped. That's why you sometimes you see two Tekken players just fucking dashing at each other endlessly, and then they're like,
Yeah.
no, is anybody gonna swing? Like, how is this even a thing?"
I know
And
it looks very interesting.
yeah, and it's because neither one of those players want to get counter hitted.
Yeah. Okay,
But
I have one more question to ask you about the gripes.
yeah,
Um, Another big one for me, and you experienced that today, is that in Mortal Kombat games, after the first round is over, you both start off in the same position as where the first round ended or the second round ended. I don't like that aspect of the game because sometimes the round ends where you're in the corner in an unfavorable position or a position that, one character just starts saying something and then walks all the way back. And now there's a full zoning that could possibly happen that's not favorable for your matchup. This is the only game where after a round is over, you start off from where the round left off, or the characters have a random interaction where they either walk forward or walk back. I don't know. But in Street Fighter, Tekken, and pretty much any fighting game that I've seen, after the round is over, you guys both reset in neutral for round two. And you were playing Han today to qualify for top eight. And there was a round that you lost because you literally guessed wrong once on off of a command grab, and you started off in the corner, and he just killed you for it. But if it wasn't for that round, it was 3 rounds straight. I mean, 6 rounds straight from your end. So, can you explain how you feel about the positioning after the rounds are over? That would make me sick.
yeah. See, that's a. I actually really didn't even think about how big that is. I obviously am just used to that. I play NRS games only, so. But it's just one little small detail that's actually a very big detail in the grand scheme of things that I never really noticed that NRS is very unique about You can think of it two ways, right? You can just be like every other fighting game and just reset to mid screen and reset to neutral after every round if you want to be like every other fighting game. Or you can want your game to be unique and make people have to really care about how they end the round. You know what I'm saying?
It's a
Which
good point.
means there's a skill, there's its own skill set in optimizing where your positioning will be when the round finishes. You know, some people do a combo and they cut it short because they know the final hit is going to put the opponent in the corner, and that's how the next round will begin. Is you in the corner? You get me?
Yeah.
Um, there's a whole layer of being good on that alone. If you don't know, like that's also something that separates somebody from being good or bad is that very that paying attention to that very detail of, oh my god, like he's about to die. Let me make sure I I end this combo with him ending up in the corner so that when the round starts, I'm in the best position to win. Um, that might not be favorable. That might, of course, the person who's in the corner is going to wish, man, I wish this was a Street Fighter and we start mid screen. Um,
Yeah.
but I guess it's just to each their own, right? That's MK's uniqueness. Are they going to change that? No. Do I have a problem with it? No, not really. But that's because I'm used to it, and I don't really, that's just preference. That's what you're used to. So when you're in a game where that's not how it operates, that's kind of whack. But for me, I don't really mind because I've always cared about like how I end the round, and I feel like if you're a smart player, you're always going to try to optimize your positioning anyway at the end of the round. So
Yes.
so I guess it doesn't matter really if you're good.
Well, I think that you also have to take matchups into consideration because some characters are more aggressive, some characters are more passive, and they have stronger zoning kits. I felt like you said you don't have a problem with it because you're used to it, but do you objectively see a problem with a mechanic like this? Because it doesn't exist in most fighting games, most popular fighting games. I get the aspect of it being its own thing and unique, but there are certain design flaws that sometimes need to be fixed in fighting games. Do you think that this is a a a logistic design flaw? Like, do you see can you approach that from an objective perspective as to why it would be a bad design, in my opinion, and maybe in some other people's opinions as well?
So I'll give you this, right. Never heard this problem brought up by anybody in my 12 years of playing NRS games. You're the first person I've ever brought up saying that they don't like how you end in the corner sometimes, you know?
Okay.
Never heard it be that big of a deal because we've just got accustomed to just making sure that we're the ones not in the corner at the end of the rounds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I,
I got you. I got you.
I'm really my the things that I want changed in a game when it comes to design flaws are things that actually break the game.
Okay.
Um, things that actually are really, it's not preference. It's at that point, it's just
Objective.
hand holding. Even that's opinion. Some people like
Mm.
fatal blow if you're horrible. You know what I'm saying? If you're,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
bad, getting fatal
Can
blow is
you
fun.
can you
But
explain? Can you explain some of those bad designs other than like the fatal blow? I know we talked about that earlier, but it seemed like you had something else in mind too.
really, dude, that's why I like MK1 gameplay wise, mechanical wise, is because they addressed a lot of the issues that I had with MK11. They didn't bring them back. They took out
Mm,
there's a lot more mechanical flaws that I didn't like in MK11, and a lot of those are gone.
okay.
Not fun fact, but for you, it might be a
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
fact. Uh,
Yeah. So yeah, let's get into the last topic then. Let's talk about the great sides of Mortal Kombat 1 and why you and Sonic have both told me that this is your favorite Mortal Kombat game. So go into the positives.
okay, so sorry, even though we're going positive, only negative about this game, mechanical wise, other than Fatal Blow, is cameos. Not a fan of the cameo system personally, but
Ooh,
that's my
okay.
opinion. That's my opinion. I think this game would be a lot better without it, but honestly, it might lose a little bit of sauce without it. I don't know. I don't know how entertaining the game would be to feel to play. Sometimes these cameos change an entire character, so that's the cool side of cameos. Is sometimes they make a bad character a great character. If they didn't have that cameo, they might be a low tier character. There's some characters that would just be way better than everybody else if cameos didn't exist, and then at that point, that's kind of lame. So I do like how cameos like can change tiers of characters, but um, cameo systems just, I guess, like I said, this is just to each their own. This is just my opinion.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
opinion. But As far as positives, we got rid of interactables. That's not in the game. That was one of the biggest hand-holding, mechanics and scrubby mechanics in the game. You could just press this button, and most interactables were invincible, unblockable, command grabs. It was really bad. You can armor him. You could just get out of unfavorable situations by simply just being next to one. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of RNG
Yeah.
because the stage is random. In tournament, the stage is chosen by random, so you can get a stage where your character actually just loses because the interactables on the stage favor the other characters,
Yeah.
which is very scrubby, So they got rid of interactables. They introduced that in Injustice 1, and it finally fell off in MK1, which is amazing. I never liked that mechanic. Um, so that's a competitive change, I think. I think that change was pro competitive because and the casuals might like interactables, but I don't like interactables. But yeah, so they got rid of a flawless block. They changed. They didn't get rid of flawless block, but they changed the way it operates. In MK11, it used to grant you the ability to launch somebody or have or use an invincible attack, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't a good mechanic because if somebody were to essentially what we call take their turn, you would just get flawless blocked. It's kind of like getting perfect parried.
Yeah.
It's not fun. You just decide to take your turn after they lost their turn, and they could rob their turn. You know, it's a rob mechanic, in my opinion. Um, they brought it back, but they only brought it back in a way so if you flawless block an attack, you don't take any chip, and they don't build any meter.
Mm.
That
That's a
is
good.
that's a
Good.
great change. Before you used to get launched if you got flawless block. Now you at least just negate chip and don't build the meter, which is that's great. So it actually incentivizes you to flawless block all the time pretty much. And you can get hit if you mess it up because you basically got to block within a few frames. Um so it protects the offensive player in the sense that they're not getting launched for taking their turn. But it also it still benefits the defensive player because who wants to just sit there and take hella chip.
And
And
they had the skill to flawless block correctly.
exactly, because not everybody can do it. So it's a skillful mechanic now. Before in MK11, it was supposed to be a skillful mechanic, which turned to a scrubby mechanic. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like perfect parry. It was supposed to be hard. If you could do it every time, a lot of people could perfect parry. You're basically getting your turn robbed all the time. But there's counterplay. So um, I just see a lot of gripes with perfect parry. That's why I'm using the connection. It's just the
Yeah, of
perfect
course.
mechanic to compare it to.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got rid of flawless block, interactables. They kind of made jump kicks not as strong, but I remember in MK11, jump kicks were virtually unanti-airable. You essentially had a flawless block, just anti-air almost. That's how dumb jump kicks were. Now you get anti-aired more often than not, which is nice. I mean, I would wish you would get anti-aired 100% of the time if you're ready.
Movement speed, combos.
Man, the movement speed
combo
got way
system.
better. So the combos got
Okay.
way better from MK11.
Okay.
The creativity got way better from MK11. The movement is easier to do than MK11, but it's universally better than MK11. Like there are only certain characters who could really move well in MK11. Not everybody could universally move well. In MK1, pretty much everybody I recall can move well. And it doesn't take Albert Einstein to be on the pad to move. And so the movement, it was horrible in the betas, but they actually buffed the movement in the official release of the game, and I don't have any gripes with moving in that game. That game, I don't. I could close distance. I could run away.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like he can run away, but I can't close the distance faster than he can run away. I don't have the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the movement is a lot. It's still there. It's still better, and it's universal. I think. I don't. Yeah, not everybody. There were some characters who literally had horrible movement in MK11, and they were just bad off that alone. Can't move. What are you gonna do when you fight a zoner? You're cooked,
I think. Is there anything else?
man. As far as positives,
Yeah, because
I
I
mean,
mean that sounds really good. I mean, you were
that
kind of
does.
making me feel like, damn, maybe I should try and play
This game
again.
is good. Hold on.
Yeah,
I don't know
like,
why.
what the heck?
I don't know why they complain so much. But that's why I said, bro. I love. I like that they took a lot of the hand holding mechanics out. The only one they didn't take out was Fatal Blow. If they would have they introduced that with MK11 and they left it in this game, and you also build meter when you Fatal Blow somebody. Like if I were to Fatal Blow you, I actually build meter from every hit in that Fatal Blow animation, which is so dumb. It's not like a crazy amount of meter, but it's still meter that's being built.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you that if it is blocked, then they get it back. I think that's just
scrubby.
That's very, very scrubby and very
Yeah.
hand
No,
holdy
what they
for
should
sure.
do is revert back to X-ray, which means you got to come off all 3 bars of meter to do that move.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't land, you just lost all 3 bars, buddy.
Yep, I
You know what I'm
agree. I
saying?
think that's a
Like
great way
this
to.
is imagine if they tied critical art to drive meter instead of super meter.
Hmm.
That's a regenerating mechanic. You don't have to manage. You do have to manage drive meter, but it does come back at least. It's
Of course, of
for your
course.
super meter. You're only building it as you're dishing out offense. I think I don't know all the intricacies of obviously building super meter in Street Fighter, but I do in MK. So that's
Well, I
that's
think that's gonna do it for this episode, dude. That
yeah.
was crazy.
I feel like I didn't really anticipate this episode being that long, but I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
No, that was an amazing. That was how I think both of us wanted that specific topic of the changes in Mortal Kombat game and whatnot to go. But obviously, there's so much to talk about, and I hope those of you that are listening kind of got a better perspective as to how I feel about the games and how Rewind feels about Mortal Kombat One. I appreciate you guys for commenting. I appreciate you guys for having those discussions inside. We're reading the comments. I'm reading the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. It wasn't supposed to be another episode, but it low key kind of became one. So
Kind
why
of,
not
man.
just put it? Yeah,
It's all
no,
good.
it's all
I mean,
good.
you had your
It's all
own
good.
questions that you wanted to ask. So
Yeah, I definitely. But yeah, you guys will definitely see Rewind back again on a future episode of Talking with T. I have some amazing ideas that I can't wait to implement with him as well, and for you guys to see in the future episodes. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have a blessed day. And Rewind, thanks again for tuning in, brother. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
of course, and guys, before the video ends, just want to say that uh, I'm a fan of healthy debate and discussion. Don't think that anything from that pod was me hating on other fighting games, because I love all fighting games. I think they're all hard as hell.
Yeah.
I think Street Fighter is hard for its own reasons. It very much might be the hardest fighting game, just like Tekken. I don't want people to think that I'm gassing how hard my game is. That was
No,
one
no,
thing I
man.
didn't like was just people. It almost felt like kind of twisting the narrative and putting things in my mouth.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that too. And I think those of the audience members that are getting to know us better will understand that that's not how we meant. That's not what our intention was.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing for me, man. It's all love for me. I want MK to succeed because I want you to succeed as well. I want you to be happy as well. You're my friend. And that's what we should want for each other. We should want healthy games that we can flourish off of and make our careers into something more of a reality.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So again, I appreciate you for being on, brother. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. God bless you. And then I will see you guys on a future episode of Talking with T.